Hey guys, so today we have something that's a little bit outside of the box, but it's a really useful modification for giving you the ability to add aftermarket accessories and electronics without having to really get into your electrical system and screw anything up. So if you're like me and you've got a rat's nest of wires that are going on near your fuse box because you've used fuse taps on everything, and I'll give you an example here of what I mean. Whoa. And look at that, that got caught on one of the wires. Anyway, so looking in here, obviously not the cleanest thing I've got going on. Basically what you're seeing is a fuse tap in the, I think it's a cigarette lighter fuse, and then a fuse tap in the accessory fuse there. And this red one's going to the dash cam, this one's going to the DRLs. I've grounded them over here. Obviously not really very clean. It's hidden, but if I wanted to add anything extra, like for example, some gauges here, maybe hardwire that nexus into something other than the cigarette lighter, or put in some LED footwell lights, which I actually do have a set of and will probably be installing with this. You can see it'll get a little bit messy. So I'm going to show you how to clean all that up. So what we're going to be doing here today is actually installing a secondary fuse box to handle all of these accessories. I did this mod on one of my previous cars and it actually turned out really well. This one is just a little fuse box I got from Amazon. I think it was actually made for a boat or something, just based on the labels that are on there. But it doesn't matter, it'll work just as good, just as well. This, all you need to do when you buy one of these fuse boxes is you need to make sure it has a common input, power input, common ground, and then little sections there for you to attach each separate ground, and also obviously each fuse. So what you're going to get here is, say I wanted to add, for example, that set of light bars, and say it just had instead of this crazy cigarette lighter thing, which I'm going to snip and take the positive and negative right from the wires themselves. What you do is you connect first of all, this to a power source, this to a ground that goes to the car. So battery goes here. And then you'd connect the positive for each accessory here, connect the negative for each accessory here, and just throw a fuse in there, rated for whatever the accessory is. And then there you go. You've got a really simple way of cleanly hooking up each new accessory that you want to throw in. Okay, so I've taken a second and drawn up a bit of a diagram there. I'm not an electrician, so if I got these symbols wrong, just ignore them, whatever. I'll get the point across. But before I talk about this, let's talk about the relay. A relay, this is a single pole, single throw relay, is essentially just a switch that's flipped electronically. So if you think about a switch being off, essentially that's cutting the power flow across that switch. When you turn the switch on, it's now connecting those points and power can flow freely. A relay does the same thing, except it's triggered by some other type of electrical signal instead of me flicking the switch. So this pin is where the power is going to enter. This pin is where the power is going to come off. And then these two pins here are used to electrically trigger the relay. So this is going to be the positive, this is going to be grounded. And what's going to happen is when power is applied to the positive, aka our accessory fuse is supplying power, this relay is now going to be closed. So it's like if I had the switch on. When power is taken away from this, something in here clicks, the relay separates, and now power is no longer flowing across here. So with that in mind, we can then go through the diagram. So from the battery, we're taking our positive and sending it to this pin here, which, like I said, is the input on the relay. Then we're taking that power, it's going to exit on this pin here. We're going to take that and we're going to send it over to the positive on the bus bar. As I said, accessory fuse tap, so when the car is on, it's going to be supplying positive power to this pin here, and that's going to be grounded. So when it's on, we're closing this relay and sending power over to our bus bar. From there, the bus bar itself is going to be grounded to the car, just like the battery and the relay are. And then each of these single pins here is a ground that's going to feed into the bus bar's ground. So this is where we're going to connect our accessories grounds. These are positives that are fed by the bus bar's positive, so through the fuse, of course. So the positive for our device, let's call this a little light here, is going to come from the positive, go to the light, the light's negative is going to come back and get grounded there. And then that's all going to feed into this ground, which is going to be grounded to the car. So what does that mean? It means that anything we connect, we just have to go positive, negative, and your accessory has power. This looks kind of complicated. It's actually not so bad. I'm going to take it into the car and get it all wired up for real, and you'll see how it looks. But before I do that, I was taking a look at this relay, and the manufacturer actually sent me the wrong one. This is a 24 volt relay, and I need a 12. So I'm going to have to order a new one and wait for that to come in. But again, it'll have no effect on this video, and you don't have to worry about that. One other thing to point out here is that this is 40 amp, so essentially this can carry a ton of power. We're going to use a pretty big gauge of wire, probably something like a 12 gauge should do it, to carry power from the battery to the relay, and then from the relay to the bus bar itself. And that's just going to allow it to carry a ton of power over here. Even though each individual accessory is going to draw minimal amounts of power, we want to supply this thing with a lot of power so that it has the ability to feed bigger devices with a bigger fuse, if that's what I wanted. I'm also going to use a pretty low gauge wire, so a thick wire coming off of the ground as well, and that's going to allow me to do a lot with this bus bar. With the proper relay, and I started wiring it up there. But before we get to that, we need to get a positive source from the battery. When I was doing this front end conversion, if you saw that video, you saw I ran a wire through the fender well here. So take a look at this red wire here. That's kind of what I ran as well. So this is my positive source that I'm going to connect to the battery, but I've left it unconnected for now just until I get the fuse box in there. So what this does is it runs down through the side here. Now if you pull back this wheel well cover, you'll be able to see that it goes through the fender and then down in here and through a grommet like there. And that comes out pretty much right in the back there somewhere. I'll grab a light and give you a better view in a second. But what you need to know is that that comes out there. I think this is actually the other end of that wire because I've already tucked it back up in there. And this is what we're going to use for the positive source. So that's going to connect to the positive source on the relay, which is this blue one. I've already connected the one that goes to the fuse box. And then the white and the black are the positive and negative to power the relay switch itself. So I started removing the previous connections I had there. I had stuff grounded here and some fuse taps. This one, which is the accessory one, I'm going to actually reuse because that's going to be my positive source for the relay itself. Just test fitting the bus bar in there as well. And you can see it actually fits really nicely in there so that when I put the cover on, it'll be covered, but it's easy to access. So this bolt up here goes right into the frame, and I think that's going to be my ground for the bus bar. And I'm going to go ahead and hook everything up. Okay, so I went ahead and wired everything up. Mounted the relay right here. Grounded the whole bus bar to that bolt there. You can see the wire coming along, headed to the common ground here. The power comes from the wire that comes through here, which I'm wiring to the positive, and that heads up to the relay, which then sends it back down to the common positive here. The trigger is attached to the accessory fuse tap there, and as you can see, I don't need any other fuse taps. And then I've gone ahead and wired my dash cam here and my DRLs here, and then they're grounded to the positives, or I mean the negative spots there. So with that done, all we need to do is head to the engine compartment, wire up the positive to the battery, and we're all good to go. And as you can see, this mounts really nicely here, just in the corner. Once I throw the panel over this one right here, it'll cover it up, and then anytime I want to add electronics, all I'll have to do is pull that panel off, throw the positive and negative in here with a fuse, and then put the panel back on, and we're good to go. Alright, so I went ahead and took this positive lead that goes to power my bus bar there, and connected it to my positive terminal there. So that's all connected, and I think we can go ahead and test this out. Okay, so if I wired everything up properly, then this should turn on when I put the key to accessory. Yeah, the dash cam came on. DRLs are working. And those are the only two things I've connected there so far. So, looks like everything is good. All I need to do now is throw the cover back on and we're done. Okay, and there we have it. So with the panel back in place, there's just the tiniest bulge with the fuse box back there, but no wires sticking out anywhere. Everything looks nice and clean, and with the door closed, you can't tell anyway, so I'm happy with that. And that's the job well done. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them below. If you like what you saw, give me a like and a subscribe, and there'll be more to come. Thanks.